It's really been a strange season, huh? We're almost to the halfway point of the season. And if the season ended today, I don't know who the MVP would be. Now, obviously, when you look at this list, you got a lot of the normal names: Luka Shea, Joker, you got Jalen Brunson in there, you got Vic, you got Cade. I don't know when this list was created, by the way. Just wanted to take a screenshot of it. But with all the injuries that would have happened, right? Like Milwaukee really struggling, because Giannis has had to miss like 14 games already. Joker's now going to miss, possibly 15, 16 games. Put him right about around that cutoff line of 65 games where he may not be eligible for the awards. Shea and OKC over the past 3 weeks have not been playing great basketball. I think they're about 500 over the past couple weeks. They just lost to Charlotte last night. Like, who legitimately would be MVP? Now, if it ended today, right, even though Shea and those guys have had a rough patch, right, I still would probably say Shea would get the MVP as it stands today, just because they still have the best record in the NBA. He's averaging 32 on very high levels of efficiency, et cetera, et cetera. We know the drill. And winning definitely should matter in these awards. So it would probably be Shea. But I'm just not so convinced, right? Like that anybody has separated themselves and has a clear cut case, or that there's any narratives, which, if we're being transparent, we all know narratives push these awards. Media members get a hold of these narratives, and that typically leads where they're going to vote, right? That we start to see a trend on where most of these guys are voting. And you can typically see it before the season even ends, because, all the talking points in media spaces and stuff like that. There's just none of that yet. There's none of that yet. It's still early in the season, not even halfway through. But I'm very interested to see how this is going to play out, because I don't know who's going to play enough games. Giannis at this point, they're not winning enough basketball for him to be, thought of, in this level. And dare I say, he might not play enough games to make an All NBA team, and he may miss the All NBA for the first time in like 8 seasons. Do any of these other guys, though? The question I want to ask: do any of these other guys who may not be as big of stars, may not be quite as known, do any of them have a case? Because I think a guy like Cade Cunningham should be a lot higher than 6 right now. Um, I don't know. Jaylen Brown at 7, I think, should be a lot higher than this right now. It's interesting, right? Like, I just don't know who is going to pull away from this thing, and that's going to be an interesting race to watch come like February, come March, when not when rosters, when records are starting to get pretty set in terms of like, this team's going to win 50 games, 55 games, in that range, that whole thing. And I think these things are going to start to be more clear. But to be honest with you, I just think, name recognition shouldn't lead these awards. If Joker gets taken out of the picture, I think Luka up to this point hasn't given himself a strong enough case just in the brand of basketball that the Lakers have played. And I think a lot of the narratives as a Lakers fan around the Lakers right now are negative, even though they just won 2 games in a row. Narratives can change fast, and I think by the end of the season, Luka will be there. But honestly, I think guys like Cade, like Jalen, like Anthony Edwards need to really get pushed up and start to be talked about more in these rankings, because Detroit's not too far off record wise from OKC at this point. OKC's lost like 7 games now. I think Detroit's lost 8 or 9, right? They should be up there. Jaylen Brown is leading the Boston Celtics to a 2 seed in the East after they lost their best player, after they lost their center, after they lost Drew Holiday, right? Like, after you lost significant points of your roster, he is the guy leading that team to a 2 seed in the East. He needs to be catapulted up. Dare I say, all 3 of those guys, both Cade, Jalen, and Anthony Edwards, should be above Jalen, should be above Vic, should be above Luka. And Joker, just knowing that he's going to be out for an extended period of time, probably needs to move down as well. So the top 4 should look like Shea, Cade, Jalen, Anthony Edwards. I don't think it's crazy to say that. I think all of those teams are winning at a high level right now. They're all top 4 seeds in their respective conferences. They're all playing good brands of basketball. I would say Minnesota is the only team that's been slightly more inconsistent than the rest. But in general, Anthony Edwards playing at a high level. The other 2 are playing at an extremely high level. Sure, there's, things to be desired, but in terms of team success, in terms of individual success, those should be the four guys leading the MVP race right now. Throw Luka in there at like number five. And again, I think Luka, if the Lakers start to play better more consistently with more effort and they start to really compete and win games versus good teams, he can really make some noise, right? Just with how loud his stats are, he can really start to make some noise. But as of now, I think those four should be locks in the MVP race. And then you got these other guys on the outskirts. And then, if Joker comes back and he's just doing what he was doing beforehand, obviously he's going to catapult himself right back into the one or two spot as well. But that's just my thoughts on the MVP race. Let me know what you guys think. It's been great to see these guys who don't get a lot of recognition play at such a high level that media, that fans, that people are just forced to talk about them to this level because they've all been playing at an MVP caliber. Anthony Edwards, Jaylen Brown, Cade Cunningham have all been playing at an MVP level. Their teams have been winning at MVP levels respectively, and they all deserve to be talked about with the rest of these guys who are typically more staples in these races, like the Shays, Jokers, Lukas, and Giannis's. But let me know what you guys think. Peace.